To be fair.
To be fair.
We are live. Mr. Brad Chester, the youngest, most handsome, best hair. I'm going with best hair now, and tallest. I have the judge of judge, Mr. Brian Horton, and I have Mr. Tom, ELO #1, Ogden.
What am I?
Just go with it. It's a true statement. You're like, where am I? You totally know what it is.
Based on the stat check ELO top 100 US rankings.
Exactly.
It's a U.S. ranking, okay, yeah.
So,
But
how goes the evening?
it's been pretty good for me. How about you? How are yourself, Brian?
I am alive and kicking, which is a very good thing.
I mean, I'm coming after a tournament, so I'm just happy to have a semblance of a voice, not being in a hospital somewhere. I set the bar low, baby.
Speaking of the come-off tournament for Brad Chester, went 5-0 with Orcs again. Way to go.
Well, we have to give props to Breton. Breton coming away with the War Master Award at the Michigan GT, 125 players. Eldari coming in first, and then I'm going to give mad props. Mr. Scott Ketchum coming in #2 with Sisters of Battle.
Oh, yeah.
Who knew?
I mean, he only plays sisters. He's a purist, so he likes his sisters. And
Very
then-
nice. Sometimes being a faction specialist pays off.
Oh, yeah.
Robert, I don't know what you're asking me for. I need your TTS team ratings for pairing. I don't know what that is. Is that like my Kung Fu Master ranking? I don't. What is that? But Battle for Salvation. Oh, we had 3 undefeateds. What was that last guy? Oh, it was Brad Chester playing Orcs. We needed a different tiebreaker because if they went with battle points, damn it, I would have snaked it away. Fools. They had strength of schedule. Breton came in with a big 80, I think 80%. It was nuts. Everybody did really well.
Oh, yeah.
Got to give some props over the Battle for Salvation. We had 2 undefeateds, Orcs and Space Marines, with
Orcs OP.
Orcs OP this weekend. Sean Naden bringing his Orcs. Battle for Salvation. Over the course of the weekend, we had the Eldari doing Eldari things. Tyranids won. We had some big numbers coming from Votan this weekend.
Yeah, 59% win rate, 22 players with 67 wins. It was a big weekend for them. It was a good showing.
100% on that. Orcs did very well, 57% win rate. They went up every single week since the data slates came out. So I like that quite a bit. It's a very good army that can play the board and without the things that were going on. Look at you, Eldar. They're a lot more easy to play into that. Your boys, the Black Templars, Tom. Woo, they've been legit for the last 3 weeks now.
I've been really looking at some Black Temple lists and the new book. I really think it's time to bring them out.
I mean, a 59% win rate is nothing to sneeze at. They can kind of counter a couple of the top armies with the way they play, which is really nice. And they still have the versatility that Marines do have overall, which is really fantastic.
Go ahead.
I want to comment real quick. Disflux saying, anyone that watched the final, yes, Scott is the people's champ, laugh out loud, looked rough. So 2 things I'd like to say about that. First off, Austin was definitely the people's champ this last week. Not Austin, Scott. I know I just said Austin. Jesus. Scott was definitely the people's champ. He rocked it out, played fantastic with a beautiful army. But the second thing is I kind of like War Games Live's approach when they talk about their games. Let's not really just talk about the state of the game or any other players or their personality. Let's just keep things positive, move forward.
Joe's a beast.
Oh, yeah.
Robert paid $2 to Super Chat. Round 2 Perry is live. Well, you could have just told me that instead of asking you how many Kung Fu matches I've been in the forest back in the day with my ninja rankings or whatever you asked for.
How many Kung Fu matches did you do back in the forest?
So many. I was in so many backyard kumites. But
Just Brad fighting like little kids. Get my candy.
So one of the odd spots on that weekend was the Battle for Salvation other undefeated list other than Orcs. Shasta's Imperial Fist list was definitively different from what we've seen out there.
he plays a lot of he plays a heavy vehicle spam.
This was not super heavy vehicle spam.
Really, that's what he's been playing. I didn't actually look at the list, but this historically Sasha has loved his vehicles. That was really has been done really well with them for a long time.
So it was Lysander, a librarian in Phobos armor, Primaris librarian with bolter discipline, Tor, and never say the last name right, Garadon, an aggressor
Garadon.
An aggressor squad, an eliminator squad, an eradicator squad, two units of inceptors, two infiltrator squads, stern guard squad, a thunderfire, two whirlwinds, a Calidus, and some inquisitorial henchmen.
Wow, that's a Brad style list. I love that.
Yeah, it's a ton of stuff, a bunch of utility units, and like he played a pretty hard matchup overall. He went into an undefeated Genestealer army in round 5, a Genestealer cult army, and really, I mean, just like raffle stomped it into the ground, and then won his last round. So it was a really interesting list. I mean, yeah, losing the Thunderfire Pan is probably going to be terrible here in a week or two, but
there's a lot more options though with that. Like with the new Space Marine Codex coming out, I just think that the Inceptors are bonkers down, and a couple of the new strats and things of that nature. They're just so good. You've got so much more.
Hit us with it. They haven't seen it yet.
Well, we were talking about it. One of the things, like especially like the Vanguard, for instance, you go with the Vanguard and the strat is 1 CP plus 1 AP plus 1 to hit, so you can have Inceptors chop down within 3, hitting on 2s with those double exploding 6s, and then they're putting AP2 on it. They're just so good at clearing out people's trash, and it's just impossible to block out 3 inches when you're getting later in the game when you don't have as much stuff. So they're becoming a really nice lethal weapon, and they went down in points again. So they're just cheap as hell, for a $1 for 3. So I love it.
And we did have a Death or Glory guy at Battle for Salvation that came in 8th place. Todd
with his Votan.
Todd with his Votan came in 8th place. Congratulations, Todd.
He was rocking it on that. It was a lot. It's one of the things, and we talk about it all the time, and I like to recap this in the meta, or just talk about it when you're preparing for something. Like BFS, for instance, was a lot different than preparing for Michigan GT because the terrain sets were wildly different. Michigan GT had large hills and big blocks of ruins. The Battle for Salvation was using GW terrain, GW1 and GW4, but they were using it with the terrain they have, which meant instead of the blocks put together, they were using their L's and walls. So you couldn't just go through things like you can in the GW terrain. So you had to go around. So vehicles and monsters had to maneuver a little bit different. So you could have different strategies, but you also had to prepare a little bit better because you knew that you were going to have to make these different angles and possibly include more infantry or maybe some more hand-to-hand and stuff like that. 100% thinking for yourself. Go stacking that +1 AP strat on top of plunging fire. Cool. It's nice. I mean, it's legit. There's zero chance. I might do it though. I say zero chance, but I might. He goes, Brad should play triple Hawk, triple Spider, triple Spectre list. I'm already kind of running that right now in that team tournament. I'm running triple Spectre and double Spider. I can't not have some trash in my list. You make the points go up on other things, I'll take so much more trash other ways.
You still running any spinners or prisms?
Spinners are auto. It's just, I haven't been running fire prisms. Brent ran him over the weekend. They still do big damage, but for me, their price is pretty high, probably where it should have always been, but it's pretty high for me because I get allergic to things. But the thing that I must have in my life is double Night Spinner. Their mechanic is just so bonkers, extremely powerful. no advance, -2 to your move is crazy good. It's something that's so big on especially any army that's trying to advance and charge. Tau crisis suits, you're making him go down from 18 to 10 inches of movement. That's a huge deal. That's just a crazy town. You can lock down slower moving armies. You can put those Necron Lich Guard at 3-inch movement. It's just, that's the one thing that I think is 100% I have to have in that army. You can pick and choose things from Eldar. It's still very deep codex or index or whatever. But man, that is just something that I think I have to have all the time.
I agree with you 100%. It's the first thing I put on my LS when I was building 2 spinners.
Yeah,
all the way.
It's so big.
Yeah, I think that's an 100. In Eldari, I think that's an 100% auto include.
But before we get too far off the tangent, let's talk a couple things. I like us to talk about what we think the meta is going, what we think it's shaping into, and then also you put on the title that we're going to talk about a certain GT.
Tampa's coming up. The GW Tampa's coming out. Big tournament. It's got a really good turnout. It's got over 300 and some people. So we'll get that in a moment. I want to talk about the newer players because with Eldari getting all those nerfs and stuff, we saw a little bit of a decrease, but they still showed up with 308 games played, 61 players over the weekend, which was the most of any faction. So I mean, they're still bringing the boys to the yard. So you're gonna have to tech against that. You know what I mean? So not as much tech as just never chase the meta. Just be aware of the meta. But that's a big thing. You're gonna see things. Chaos Knights are starting to do better each week. They were 55% over the weekend, 51% since the data slate. They've got 2 tourney wins on that. So, they're looking very nice. The thing is, we had Scott do really well over the weekend. We had 2 other people do really well with Sisters. Sisters had a 52% win rate over the weekend. While they have damage issues, they have a couple things that can put out a little bit of damage, but man, they can spam the board with trash and just score points.
I mean, there's not a lot of other armies that can play 2 and 3 man units in mass quantity.
Yeah.
That are slightly durable. I mean, they're not like immensely durable, but the ability to hide them, score primary, come out and do, quote unquote actions is a big thing.
It's huge because you can also trade up in an army that doesn't want to sacrifice things. There's a lot of armies that can really hit hard, but like your Votans, some of your new Eldar lists and stuff like that, they don't have a ton of things that they want to go dedicate taking out a 2-man Crusader squad and stuff. You're like, hey, I'm on this objective, figure it out. And you're like, I don't want to put a real unit into your 22-point trash or whatever, So that's a big deal on that.
I think Sisters, I think they're going to be in a better place, but I'm kind of excited. I like the way so far the Marine Codex looks. I love the way the Tyranid Codex was. If we get like 6 or 8 of these codexes in soon, I think we're going to be in a really good place.
I'm going to give props on this. You guys yell at me for GW shilling, but I think that the Tyranid and the Marine Codexes came out really well. They don't feel, we might find something, but they haven't really so far. It just feels like both of them have multiple tournament-worthy armies, and they don't feel super OP, but they don't feel underpowered either. So I feel like that's...
So let's look at the Tyranid data from the weekend to kind of discuss that. So they had 40 players, right? Lowest win rate was 36%. That was with Synaptic Nexus, and I think that was probably a lot of people trying to learn the popular list that's out there for that. The one that was surprising to me was Unending Swarm with 3 players, 13 wins, 87% win rate, which is absolutely crazy, and a tournament win, 2 top 5 finishes with it as well on top of that. And I think it's part of the people aren't running a lot of bullets right now.
Yep. We were talking about this last week, which is there's a lot of armies that are top tier armies that are very kill other big things centric because you're looking to kill all those tanks and stuff. And then if you just bring a lot of bugs, that's a scary list, man. You know what I mean? You can catch people, especially if you get a couple decent matchups. It's really difficult. And there's not that many armies that have that. Now we'll see how the meta starts shaping up because it has been just changing each week a little bit since the data slate. as people are just putting different stuff on the board. A lot of the same factions, but different views on the factions, because a lot of factions got point reductions. So you can put more things in. You have different combinations that start to work out. Uh-oh. Shameless plug, but it would be awesome to see one of my teammates come down to North Carolina for 2 different events. Team Battle Relics GT on November 11th. Boo Crew members. Logan is hosting a GT on December 9th. So, throwing that out. Avatar will see Carnico shattering dreams from the Mad Lad smashing people all weekend with that. So, what do you think is going to start? What are we predicting? Tom was already talking about predicting on the meta, because we've had Thousand Suns doing pretty decent every single week. Eldari is going to continue to do well. Chaos Knights are popping up. Orcs are starting to do well. Templars is here to stay, it looks like. League of Votan jamming in there. CSM has literally been winning 53% pretty much every weekend since the data slate. And
Well, it was 52% this last weekend.
yeah, I'm saying, but it's 53 for the 4 week, you know what I mean? So it's around there every single week. So they're just doing really well. And they've got and that's with a lot of games played, because they had 210 games played this weekend. So you're getting a really good sample size of that. So I think that this is going to be a lot of things. You know what we saw a lot of? World leaders have been really propping up.
Yeah, they've been creeping up, especially if you look at them in the GW terrain. They've been doing really well.
And the thing is I think that they're going to continue on that. They can really get to people fast. I think world leaders are one of those armies that you have to know how to play, because if you don't screen and don't get into effectively, they are fast as shit. They'll get right up on top of you in a hurry.
Also, their buffs they can get from, depending on what they roll, can like really change the tempo of a game too, which is pretty cool. I like the army.
Yeah.
It's cool to see an army that's like almost all melee do good, in addition that everyone thinks is just anti-melee. Like it's hard to find units that work in melee, in my opinion. I think they nerfed melee too much.
Agreed.
But to see is do pretty good, it's pretty cool feeling. Even though
I agree with that.
So I think it's going to be big on this, and you've got a lot of. I'm really looking forward to when the Marine Codex is legal, because I think one, I want to see how they. I mean, obviously they're gonna hack them by the detachments now. So I'm wondering how he's actually going to put that up, because you're not going to have like just straight Imperial Fist like that. You're going to have Vanguard and Advance and Charge and stuff like that.
I actually like the fact they did that. I think it's pretty cool.
I like that he did that with Tyranids, where he broke everything out. The problem with doing that with Space Marines is then you have to break it out, because if somebody takes Gilliman, that's clearly Ultramarines. Which one of the detachments does that fall into? Does he break it down much more specifically? That's a lot of work for one person who's doing an amazing job, by the way.
100%. I really looking at it. The army that I feel could be doing better, because it feels like it's strong enough. Necrons are surprising me why they're not over 50, to be honest with you.
So I think Necrons suffer from at least a standpoint that I can see, where there's just so many things that counter what they do well that it's problematic. I think unless you play 100% Silver Tide and 100% commit to it, which in some ways is a very boring game to play.
It's boring, but man, it works. You just have a lot of resilient stuff, and a lot of they have basically a lot of the things that Sisters have with that, which is a lot of cheap individual units. They have deep strike units. They get with death marks and single destroyers and stuff like that. They can just be everywhere on the board, scoring a huge amount of points.
If you run into anything with precision, Necrons just crumble.
I don't know. I like the Satan, the Transcendent Satan. Oh my god, it's in half damage before invuln. Holy shit! Like, that's the first thing I came across since I was putting back to Tau that I just didn't feel like I could blow through. Like, it was hard. I decided to die in that hill. If I didn't kill him, I was gonna lose the game, and I went after it. But I never sweat like that before trying to kill something. That thing was super durable.
I agree with Corey. Corey's talking shit. I love it. He goes, Necrons are down because I haven't been playing tourneys lately. I do think it's one of the armies that surprised me on that.
So they don't do really well. Number one, in anything that uses WTC scoring, Necrons don't do really well because they don't win big. They win nickel and dime and win small. In anything that uses standard scoring, they'll do okay. The problem is a large chunk of the meta comes from WTC matches, so that kind of skews things quite a bit. You could probably go undefeated with Necrons, not win an event because you didn't score well on score differential.
Yeah, that's true. I do think that they score well. I don't know if they deny points very well.
Yeah, they don't deny points well. I think that's one of the armies that would do really good anywhere outside of WTC style play, but in WTC style play, it's going to suffer horribly. I don't even know if I would ever, at this point in time, in the WTC style teams format, take a Necron army.
We got Meta Monday in the chat himself. He's doing Space Marine Codex and other Space Marine factions by detachment, just like he did the NIDS.
Perfect.
Yeah,
like
that's great.
Yep. Also, Rex, yes, we did something. We talked about your performance when we were over a quick recap of Battle for Salvation. And he says, Hearthguard OP. People legit bitched about him 5 out of 6 games.
Nice. And again, I think that Votan are now in a good spot. I think that little bit of a boost they got put them up into a nice place. People hadn't seen them in the meta because they were not doing very well for a while. Now that they are, they kind of got to learn their rules and figure out how to play against them. It's a nice shift.
Well,
I actually think we're in a really healthy spot with the exception of a couple armies.
Agreed on that. One of those armies, Drakari's not looking great right now. I mean, you can spam Dark Lances, but besides that, when you run out of Dark Lances, you're just playing Eldar at that point in time.
And
a worse version of Eldar, though.
I mean,
so
Dark
let's
Lances
look
is
at
amazing.
the bottom and talk about it a little bit. I'm going to leave the Marines out because I think
for sure. I mean, it doesn't
they're
matter.
going to get the boost. So Guard were down this week, right? They dropped a 40% win rate. I think part of that is people adjusting to the meta that's currently changing for Guard. And a lot of Guard players are very fluff oriented in some ways, to where they stick to a certain build and that's what they enjoy playing. The top tier players adjusting to Astra Militarum are doing well with it. The other big drops were Custodes, who creeped back up to a 40% win rate, but are still suffering. Imperial Knights at 39%. Again, those two armies over nerfed. And I agree with what we said last week of just roll back a couple things. They should be fine. Genestealer Cult took a big drop down to 39%, and that was with one of the top players in the ITC playing at Battle for Salvation this week and going 4-2. Grey Knights took a big drop down to 38%. Drukari at 36 are the rounders of the bottom of the barrel.
It's hard because Grey Knights is one of those armies that I don't know if they're going to be fixed until they get their Codex, because they have the best mechanics in the game. They went down significantly in points, but their damage output suffers. They just have such a hard time taking out harder targets. You know what I mean? They can take out the trash like nobody's business, but they have a terrible time taking out big targets.
Yeah, the problem is they just don't have anything outside of the Dread Knights that shoots and can kill large vehicles, except for their large vehicles. The Land Raider is probably the only thing that they've got in their arsenal that takes out big stuff. And that's just a little too easy to kill, in my opinion.
I'm going to go to Kyle on the thing because Kyle and Rhinosaurus are talking about it. He goes, are NIDs underperforming for a full Codex army? I do not think so. I think that they're a really good Codex. They dipped down a little bit this weekend, but for the 4 weeks, they have a 53% win rate. And I really think that there's just a lot of versions that you can put on the table. And I think you're going to just see more and more fine lists as we continue on with the season.
It's hard to really look at like Tyranids as a whole, though, because other detachments are so drastically different. Like you look at this last weekend, Unending Swarm, even though it only had 3 players, had an 87% win rate.
Yeah.
That's pretty spicy.
I mean, you've got a lot of. It just has play. See what I mean? So I was surprised the Synaptic Nexus was as low as it was. We've seen a lot of. I did have a little respect. I played one of the guys playing Vanguard Onslaught, and they have a lot of shenanigans there, so they can really screw with your army. So using that with somebody really skilled is going to be shaky. It'd be really hard to deal with. So they've got. I just think that the Tyranid army has a lot of tools. I think the same thing is to be said for Marine Codex right now. I think that there's going to be some really different armies that are out there, and they're going to be doing well.
So Meta Monday, can we fix Custodes? I think Custodes need to have some of their nerfs rolled back on a couple of their units. I think eliminating them down to 5-man size units was a little bit rough. I think they could have fixed that a little bit better. I think a few of their strats got a little too nerfed as well. And I think the change to mortal wounds, they should now be able to ignore the wounds caused by devastating wounds on a 4+, and that would probably fix it.
100%. Well, they don't have an attachment rule right now. It works against what?
Yep.
Tank shock, doom bolt, and explosions.
Yeah. Next to nothing would be the appropriate answer.
Yeah. I mean, just they need something for their detachment for sure. And the thing is that I think they got caught. It's the same thing with Knights, to be honest. We've talked about this before. The problem right now with those two factions is they got hit with a flurry. They basically got a death by 1,000 cuts, where they know one nerf was the death of them, but it's just they got hit by 4 or 5 different things, points and rules, and just other mechanics.
I think GW, when they nerfed devastating wounds, they should have also implied that Feel No Pain works against it as well. Like, it just feels bad.
Yeah.
When you.
So I think that army can be played. It's just they got a couple nerfs, and then they had too many. They just got too many nerfs. I don't know what to do with them though, besides take back a couple things. But again, it's the synergy though, the things that come together. You know what I mean? So you got to look at the gestalt of it, not just the individuals, because that's how they get into those problems in the first place, is stacking rules. You know what I mean? So.
Yep. I think the squad size thing really hurt Custodes the worst, because you were getting a lot of benefits from having 10 guys in a squad plus a character attached to it and getting good use out of your strats. Now with 5 guys in a character, it's just not as effective. Your dice don't hit as well in close combat. You can't pick up slightly durable units. It's a little too hard. And if Terminators can be in a 10-man brick, it's tough for 5 Custodes to pick that up.
100%.
Before 10 Custodes could run a chance of doing it, now they can't.
Well, especially with the full rerolls. I mean, that really stacks up. The more attacks you can get with full rerolls is just a big deal. It's huge on that. So the army, I think the Custodes are very close to being fine again. It's just what combination of small increases that you give them to them, because you don't want to give them a huge amount of stuff. I think the Knights are the same. I really thought that they should have rolled back the Knight points changes when they took away towering.
Yep.
That whole thing was the towering. The original points were supposed to be the counter to towering. We don't have towering anymore. Give them back the points.
Yep.
Right. I don't agree. I think like the squad size, just if we get it back to Custodes, I think you could have a couple interesting lists. Could do well again.
No, do that. Kara's got a good point on that. The leaders went up way too much too. It's just like nickel and diming everybody.
Yeah.
It's just everything went up like 15, 20 points, but just coming together on an already expensive army, you just end up putting too few models on the table.
Yep.
You could tell the Codex is like primed to do, like it wants to do well almost, just needs a little bit of help. Because it did have 2 players go either X and O or X and 1, which is
still scary strong. I mean, the units themselves have great rules. It's just they need a little bit of points. Do they need the unit size back? I'm not sure, but they need just a little. The problem is how much, you know what I mean? What do you give them? Is it just straight points? You know, do you give them their detachment rule applies to all devastating wounds, so they actually become more survivable versus people doing devs? So probably a little bit of both. And I think those are the 2 changes I would probably make. I would definitely make the detachment rule just work versus devastating wounds. and then just pull back those point increases just a little bit. I think they'd be fine.
Yeah, when my thing was I shot a strangle web and got 4 devastating wounds on a custode unit with a crap 7-point model or whatever it is, and it picked up a 50-point model, and I was just like, yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, like, what are you talking about, man? It's totally fine.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think are we going to see at the U.S. Open Tampa 40K Grand Tournament?
So this weekend was the first weekend I used the new GW layouts for an event. We had 22 people, absolutely fantastic showing. And with watching a lot of the games and seeing the different interactions, I think a lot of infantry heavy lists are going to start surprising people, and especially stuff that has scout, infiltrate, any pregame moves that can hold areas a little bit and just slow things down. And big, good movement infantry units are going to be the interesting things. I think we're going to see a surprise army win that.
Really? I just, one of the vehicle armies seems to can do really well with that. GW Terrain really helps vehicles on that because they give them places to go. You can,
and those walls, like half the train, you can like drive over, no penalty.
And you can just sit inside and shoot through too. You just put right out or you peek, especially when they come together. You just peek out with the gun barrels and stuff like that. So it's a lot easier than playing on L's and things of that nature. 100%.
Especially like Tau, man, it's rough. Like to try to go over, like if you're not playing like GW rules, some of those middle pieces or side pieces take a lot of movement to get around.
Yeah, GW, you just go pop back and forth. You can also do strike and 100%. Fade and go back. So, but
again, that's what I'm going. I think decent shooting infantry heavy units, and in some ways orcs, the endless swarm Tyranids, I see popping into that like top 5 range.
Well, let's do something fun.
And trash Eldar, I think, are also going to be right up there.
Let's all bet a drink or something at the next event where all 3 of us are at. Let's see pick the top 4 armies and get the best pick. Like let's do like a little mini draft.
I'm putting this in poll too. Yeah, I'll have you start. Let me type.
Go ahead, Tom. Pick your top 4.
I'm gonna say Black Templars. I think they're gonna do well there. Leagues of Votan. Chaos Space Marines. Eldari. Not in that order. That's just the 4 armies I'm picking.
And I'm going to go with Eldari, Tyranids, Chaos Space Marines, and Black Templar.
I like that. I'm going to go Elves, CSM, Space Dwarves, and Templars, and I'm actually putting it up as a poll because I don't know how to put more than 4 choices. So I'm using my 4.
Well, out of everyone who picked our 4 armies, who do you think is going to be the top? Like the actual top faction there?
I think Elves. Elves or Tau, actually.
I think it's going to be Eldari.
I have a feeling it's going to be Tyranids surprising people. And I know that sounds like a homer pick, but
it's not though. They have a lot. There's a lot of good players going to this event. It's a very big event too. We've got our own. We got Dice with Rice. We've got Crawley going down. Jeremy's going down. We've got
Matt O'Hara's going down.
Yep. We've got a lot of different our players going down. So there's a lot of really heavy hitters going in there. People that could do really well all weekend. So it's going to be a tough weekend.
Look at that, Brian. Meta Monday is he's going with you. He's saying that he thinks it's going to be a infantry / monster heavy list on the top dogs right now.
Yeah, so, I really think that I think the I'm torn between either Synaptic Nexus because I would assume because it's in Florida that Lennon's going, right?
I'm assuming that the entire Art of War crew would show up. It's their home territory. They're all in Florida.
Maybe like
Hunter Nichols is going down there. I love that. He was top 4. Well, that really depends on what I'm bringing.
And I think I'm really torn because I think his Synaptic Nexus list is really good. I do think into that meta, the Unending Swarm may run into like just stuff that hard counters it. But the fact that you can run into a bunch of stuff that just can't handle that as well, and because it's pods, you can run away with things. So,
I mean, it's a big thing on that. So the oh god, the
That's
sorry,
all I know.
sorry,
Thank
I
you for
got
doing-
random picks on the side, but I think that I wish they would have Marines ready for this tournament. To be honest with you, because I think that would change a lot of things. To be honest with you, because a lot of people would, if they let Marines be legal for that.
well, I mean, they can't because it doesn't come out until
Yeah,
Saturday.
but I'm saying it usually does. They usually go reveal 1 week. You know what I mean?
Right, but they've gone to they started with the Space Marine thing. Everything is going to be 2-week pre-order now. It looks like.
Boo, boo.
I think it's
I agree with you on the
that
boo.
they don't release it right before a big GW event, because then you could just have people like spike the playing field with an army that people don't understand how to play against, especially if you don't have like advanced knowledge. It's better to like not have an army legal literally just in time for event. Make the army like not legal for it's been out for like 3 or 4 weeks at least.
I'll give you that. I like this. I enjoy meta changes quite a bit. You know what I mean? So I like to see different
don't
stuff
get me
all
wrong.
over.
I love the descent into chaos of stuff. It makes for some good fun and some interesting things. But at the same time, I think you need 2 weeks for people to. Although I agree that stuff gets put out on the internet, the people who have the capability of reviewing Games Workshop product put it out there normally a week beforehand, 2 weeks beforehand. But I think you need a good, solid 2 weeks of the physical release date for something coming out to be legal in a tournament.
I'll give you
It
that.
just gives people time to catch up.
The other thing is like you don't even see. I really don't think that we've seen even remotely like Tyranid's final forms right now. I think we're still in the infancy of Tyranid lists. I think everybody's got good ideas about Tyranid lists, but like more and more games you put in, because they've got a lot. Like if you look at the Tyranid Codex, the data sheets, it's a pretty deep list of really good units that you want to put in your army.
Yeah. It's like I can't stress enough. There is a few bad units in the book. I'm not gonna lie. There's some units that are hot garbage, but there's a bunch of stuff that, like, if their points was just a hair better, would be like a fighting for those spots. There's a ton of good stuff in that book.
And you got to just keep working with synergies too, because you've got unit synergies with, and then you've got to mix them with the detachment rules, because each one has really good different stratagems. So I think that it's just going to be tinkering with it. But I think you're going to see Tyranids doing. I don't think they're going to be dominant, but I think you're going to see them doing pretty decent for at least the entirety of this season, maybe going to next season.
Yeah. KR, why are we come off the Tau train? I was on the Tau train a little bit. I'll admit to you, I thought that because of most of their stuff being vehicles with fly, made it a little bit difficult for them to get around a GW board. So in seeing it in practice, I actually find it a little more difficult. But
I still disagree.
I think they're still very good.
I love Tau and GW. The reason why I don't say Tau, it's because most of the players that are playing Tau now and doing really well with Tau are not going to Tampa. It's hard. I don't know. Maybe it's the wrong way of saying it, but I'm like trying to like picture factions of people that I think will be there. I think one I kind of thought I probably should have chose Tyranids as well. I didn't think about Lennon. If he's back on Nids, I definitely think that Nids are going to be up there. But not a lot of top players are going to Tampa, unfortunately.
The thing is that I'm not off the Tau train at all. I think they're crazily good. So it's a big deal on that.
Is Sean playing Tau at?
Crawley's going to play Tau. Sean's going to something different.
Top players, not
Oh, my bad, not Crawley.
Yeah. Is right.
But
I didn't realize Crowley's back on Tau. I thought he'd be playing Elder still.
I think he was still in decision, to be honest with you. So
Now that would change some things if two really solid players there. If either one of them play Tau, they have a chance of making a top 10. I didn't think either one was on. I thought Rice was. I thought they were both on Elder.
I think Rice is going to bring Elder. I think Crowley's going Tau.
Interesting.
And I think what is it? I think Siegler's still on Tau, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, well, I'm just going from, if I remember correctly, from Crucible. He was playing Tau, and he was apparently there while talking, going, "Oh, I already see what list changes I have to make, what I've done wrong in this build and design." So,
All right. Well, there we go. If Crowley or Siegler play Tau, maybe we all underestimated them.
yep.
I didn't underestimate the Tau.
I think Chaos Space Marines are going to be. If we have to like put dollars to donuts on what's winning the event, something in my head says Chaos Space Marines.
I think they also do really well in the GW. There's a couple armies that like just really like those angles and being able to pop up. CSM and Tau are probably the two armies that can just spike an insane amount of damage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a bonkers town. Like if you mess up against either one of those armies, they will just pick you up.
There are also armies that are like, they're not hard to play, but they're not easy either. So like a lot of people pick them up and they just don't understand how to do the movement or position them and quick to give up on them. But if you can master their movement in either one and put yourself in the right position to get that firepower off, they can really blow up the board.
Well, it's like I've been as everyone knows, I've been a Tyranid player for eons, and I've been like tinkering with stuff and looking at things, and I really never thought of how useful using the Death Leaper with 3 Neuro Tyrants together and pinpointing down an objective, going, "You're not coming here and not getting battle shock to OC0." How key that could be of just, I own this objective, and how to place it and use that 4 models together with Lone Operative to go, look, if you get within range, you're going to get screwed on an objective. Pretty interesting thing. Yeah, it's one of those little nuances that I hadn't really thought of a ton until I did it to somebody.
It's legit. I mean, I don't know. I'm excited. I want to fast forward into a couple more codices because I really enjoy what they've done so far, and I'd like to see more people having more options.
I'm actually really excited for LVO. I think that the edition is going to be in a very healthy space thing because we'll have 3 or 4 codexes out by then. It'll be legal, so maybe even 5. So I don't know. I'm kind of excited for LVO already.
So next month we have AdMech, or is it Necrons next month? It's AdMech and Necrons are the next 2. So you're looking at November, December. If everything they've said is correct, it looks like we're going to get 1 a month between now and June.
Nice. That's why I knew it was going to be 4, but it may be 5 if we get 1 in January.
Yep.
That's what we have to see. So I don't know. I think we're looking for a very healthy meta. LVO is positioned in a great place to be, like, probably in my opinion, the first big healthy GT. When you have 4 or 5 codexes, and if they're all like Tau, or not Tau, but NIDS or Space Marines, it's gonna be really good. And also, I think Tau's coming out either January or February based off the timeline, right? So I'm super excited for that as well.
I'm really wondering what they're going to do with Tau, to be honest with you. If they're going to, I'd like to see them add more of the allied races that they have. Being a weird fluff guy. Speaking of that, I'm going to shamelessly promote myself out of nowhere. I put out my Lorecast. 40K Lorecast was not taken, and it is now mine. Just released on Spotify, iTunes, wherever the hell you download podcasts, you can get it. I don't know where you kids get all your stuff. I just recorded it. But I've done dropped 3 episodes now. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, you love talking about your lore. We're still going to have our lore battle one time on stream. It's going to happen.
It's going to be amazing. But in the lore, it made me think of it because of the lore there. But one of the biggest things is Tau should have access to a whole bunch of shit, to be honest with you. They have so many races that fight with them now.
You think they'll get some new models or new range of anything?
That's what I was wondering, because if you add some of the allied alien races, they could have a ton of new models. So I think that'd be sick.
Yeah, well, I just hope they don't like make crisis suits like worthless, because that's my favorite unit. Them and Riptides. Make one of those 2 good, please. I like my robots.
in
Yep,
disguise.
So just going over the Codex roadmap really fast. It was Tyranids, then Space Marines, then Admech, then Necrons, Dark Angels, Orcs, Custodes, Tau, Chaos Space Marines. That is the spring lineup of Dark Angels, Orcs, Custodes, Tau, Space Marines.
JCMS, you won't get anything that had 10th edition games played until at least summer, probably fall. And when I say that's the problem is that I don't think of 10th edition games until the last couple weeks. Like basically until the data slate came out, that's when I considered 10th edition to have launched. Because before that it wasn't real. It was fake. It was fake news. What's the actual rule for hazardous? I don't understand on that. Rules it says the characters have to take the mortals first. What?
That's a good question for Brian, actually.
I'm going to Brian on that.
If that's the rule, I'm gonna be honest with you, I have not been playing it right.
I'm fairly sure it does go on the characters first, if I remember correctly, via the hazardous rule, but let me just double check myself.
So the leaders have to take the hazardous checks or the hazardous wounds first? That's kind of odd. Since they can't take wounds from anything else. Real lore gods. Ooh, if that was that would be awesome. But
so after shoots or fights with a hazardous test, roll a d6 for each hazardous weapon. Each one model equipped with a hazardous weapon is destroyed. Characters, monsters, and vehicles suffer D3 mortal wounds instead. So it really doesn't specify there.
Yeah,
this is first. Says for each roll of 1, that test has failed, and one model in that unit is equipped with a hazardous weapon is destroyed, unless that model is a character, monster, or vehicle, in which the case suffers 3 mortal instead. All that says is that if it's a character, vehicle, or a monster, you just take 3 mortal. It doesn't mean you have to take them first.
You don't have to take it. Doesn't specify taking them first.
Oh no!
That's one of the times where when you have an entire unit taking hazardous tests.
Look at the second part of that. Is actually they're correct. Note that if you have selected a character model in the attached unit, the mortal wounds suffered must be allocated to that model first. If there's another model in the unit which
can what? I thought you just had to roll them separate for the character. But if the entire unit's vehicles, it wouldn't make a difference.
No, but look, it's a totally different sentence. Note that if you selected a character model in an attached unit, the mortal wound suffered must be allocated to that model first, even if there is another model unit that has lost 1 or more. So what that's saying, I read it, is that if you, so this is something we haven't been doing, right? At least I've seen no one around here do it, right? You have to roll the character shots completely separate.
That's what I'm saying. It's it's not like the entire unit's giving him the hazardous. You have to roll him separate. Yeah, that was what I was saying before.
That's what I was gonna say. There's the unit itself takes its own wounds. I would roll the character separately for its hazardous test.
Right. You just roll the character separate and you roll the unit separate for the hazardous test. 100%. Yeah. Nope. Yes and more yes.
You can't pass off a hazardous test.
I took out Michigan GT and I did not do that right. I think I didn't win.
You were rolling separate for the guy. Man, CSM's starting to run away with this. 43%.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. CSM's got a lot of... They have 2 strong builds, although they have some similarities into them. The cultist build with the accursed cultists and everything is very intriguing and can flood objectives really well. There's a lot of, as Brad's a huge fan of trash, there's a lot of trash in that army, and you do some interesting stuff with the brick still cleaning up.
Oh, also they got to figure that you can, the regenerating thing is just nuts.
Yep.
You can put 3 guys, you can have the unit behind a wall, string 3 dudes out, regen right back on, you know what I mean? Because you're still within 2. So you can do some shenanigans.
I actually kind of agree with Connor. It actually is a little bit better for Tau. It could be worse depending if you roll, because you can X-Men snipe your character out. But on average, you're going to roll 1 for the character, which could be time to save a suit sometimes. Also, with the reroll hazardous, kind of nice. But so I think Connor's right. It's very bad for us, but very good for Tau players at the same time. They have to roll the character separate.
Yeah.
But what is the top three right now? If you had to pick your three team Tom, team Brian, 3-man team tournament, what are you bringing?
Chaos Space Marines, Eldari, and Tyranids.
Is this like who I think's gonna be my team, or am I just picking?
Just that you were picking the best factions. You're going to get a good player, period, to each one. Say equal player skill on each one. What are you bringing?
Eldari, Black Templars, Tau.
That's tough on them. I actually like where the meta's going right now, to be perfectly honest with you. Looking back at the recap, I looked at these numbers earlier this morning. I was really looking at it, and I think that you've got some low armies, but for the most part, we're getting back into where most armies are relevant. And I like that quite a bit. And why I'm excited about it is because I think that the two new codexes have not been crap or OP. You know what I mean? And that's a big deal too. So hopefully we just keep that up.
Brad is looking at the bottom two armies, right? So we'll just say that, well, the bottom three. We'll say Genestealer Cult, Grey Knights, and Drukhari. Genestealer Cult, roll back their nerf a little bit, right? That would probably fix that.
They still put out like a crap ton of damage, so
yeah.
I'm
just saying if you roll back their nerfs, their points a little bit, I think that fixes them. Drukhari, I don't think there's a fix for with just points.
Yeah, they just need rules. The problem is they're suffering for Eldar nerfs. And the rest of they basically have Codex Darklance and then nothing to support them unless you just choose things from Craft World. Yeah.
My favorite thing is, I think it was with you, Brad, or maybe someone else on Discord. One night we're just trying to build some Dark Eldar list. And as the night progressed, it became a lot less Dark Eldar and a lot more
Eldar. Yeah, you just go.
It started like 1,500 points of Dark Eldar and like 500 points of Eldar. And about an hour and 25 minutes in the session, I think we're down to like 400 points of Dark Eldar.
It's just crazy. You're like 3 Ravagers and some other dudes with Dark Lances, and you're like, we should probably just make this a Dark Eldar army. Like this is.
Yeah. 1+ saves. I agree with you. Necrons, in my opinion, and I may be wrong on this one, aren't super relevant. They just don't have the tech to beat the top armies, and they are very much a gatekeeper army right now. At least that's my opinion. I could be completely wrong.
Right.
But
you won Necron. Do you think you guys shot against like a very solid Eldar player?
Yeah, because I just think I can score. They just have so much trash. Their trash.
Do you think you can deny them scoring enough?
I don't know. I think I'd have to try for hundos every time. But I think I could put up some giant points, though. I don't think you can deny me tactical.
I don't think that they can. I just don't think they have a strong enough scoring thing to deny the points. I think they can score well. I think you're going to score in the 80s to 90s almost every time. You just can't prevent your opponent from getting 95s and 100s.
Yeah. Dude, I'm going to the wall. Yeah.
You going to say your comment?
Yep. Annex comment. Drukhari lists are easy. You start with 3 Warwalkers or Bright Lances, then you add some Night Spinners. Yeah, exactly. KRI made a great comment, too. I actually agree with this. I hadn't thought about this a lot, but he goes, GK are going to get worse as we get more and more armor and contempt armies. I agree with that because they have an AP and strength of weapons problem in the first place. The more people get defensive against them because they already have an output problem, their rules are just so good. Their mobility is fucking great. They have so many shenanigans.
Can you point them low enough to where they're not overpowered by the number of bodies on the board?
I don't know because
their damage output being low.
I don't know.
This is the funny thing about like Grey Knights for me. I was trying to convince Brad like 2-3 months ago. I was like, no, I'm gonna play Grey Knights this season. He's like, no, you're not. I was like, dude, I'm gonna play Grey Knights. Like, you can't kill vehicles. I'm like, I got side cannons. It's still strength 8. You know, it ain't that bad. So I wound like toughness 10 or higher or 9 or higher on 5s. Who cares? Like, it can't be that bad. Then I play Tau and I get like a bazillion more shots, and I'm still like, ooh, toughness 9.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a version of that, and I'm like,
Tom's like, yeah, man, I was gonna take my 6 side cannon shots instead of my 54 CIBs. Oh man.
It's just strength 8 does not feel like strength 8. Like, and maybe I'm just being weird for me because I'm so used to strength 8 being good for so long. like forever, and now it's like
Kyle
it feels
has
like
an
spring 5
interesting question. He says, with the nerf to devastating wounds, what becomes the strongest keyword?
Explosions, sustained.
So you think explosions and sustained? I think lethal hits is equally as good.
Depends
So I
on
think
your
lethal hits just automatically wounding is just fantastic.
I'm just thinking of like a lot of the stuff that is sustained too, though. You know what I mean? So
it just depends, because you need something that needs to have like a drastic volume to make lethal really really good. To where if you have something just like high quality like damage weapons, getting sustained just feels so much better.
Yeah.
Like if I have a lethal,
I'll give it
I've
that.
been running a lot of trash high shot lethal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trash shots,
what I
lethal.
call it.
I'll give you that. Trash shots, lethal is the best keyword. If you're talking about quality shots, explosions are the best keyword for that.
I've only seen one army that makes me really really like lethal. At least in my playstyle, it's like Black Templar with like lethal chainswords. Seems kind of cool, but every other army I look at really has sustain. Like Tau, sustain. Like I can have lethal CIBs or double explodes. Take double explodes all day long.
Yeah, it's just a big deal on that. If you're firing the quality shots, explosions, I'll give you for sure, Brian, on that. Lethal hits seem fantastic when you're starting to talk about trash shots. So, guys, let's promote some stuff. I shamelessly promoted some lore casting.
So I'm gonna shamelessly deploy. As if I can talk that.
Exactly.
Shamelessly plug Du Bois GT coming up in Rochester, New York. We have tickets left for 40K. www.duboisgt.com. The player pack should be up tonight. So we are looking pretty good there.
You have a lot of us DOG tournament players there. It's gonna be fun.
It's going to be a good time.
Oh yeah. Rumble on the River coming up. It's next month. It's going to be in Fort Wayne, and absolutely stunning, beautiful convention center. Tickets are up. Let's support it, guys. If you can want to show up to a fun tournament, lots of prize support, lots of trophies, come check us out, Rumble on the River.
And on that one, everybody, Queens Wave. Thanks for hanging out with us.